Hello, hello. Test check 1, 2. How is it sounding? That sounds pretty good. Boom, there I am. Hello and welcome to another Monday afternoon Ableton Live office hours stream. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer. And this is what I do for fun on Monday afternoons. Come in, talk a little bit about making music with Live, and you guys are more than welcome to pop in and ask questions about whatever it is that's on your mind. Other than that, I'm just gonna be hanging out and probably just working on starting a new track for this week. I'm doing my 1 song a week challenge, which is it's not been easy so far, but trying to stick with the schedule and get stuff done, hopefully theoretically on time. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start working on a new thing, and if you guys have any questions, they do not need to be relevant whatsoever to what I'm working on. If you just have stuff you want to talk about, things you want to ask about, that's really the whole point of the stream, is for you guys to derail me as much as possible. And yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing. So I'm gonna start off with some drums, I think. Not sure if I want to do 4 on the floor or not. I'll stick with it. And I'm using just drum synth for this because I love drum synth and it's quick and easy. And let's get a tiny bit of distortion. Something like that should be fine for right now. And let's go ahead and toss some hats in here. We're gonna also use the drum synth hats just because I like using drum synth. And it makes my life really easy. And just for variety, let's add a 8-note one. And did I make that shaker drum rack last week? Hoping this is the one I made like a week ago, because we're also gonna toss some shakers in here. I like that one. I think that'll be okay for right now. We'll do something like this. What's up, after party? How you doing today? I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. And maybe toss a little bit of delay on here. Not sure if I actually really want or need the delay. Ping pong's too much. It's a bummer to hear you got the run after party. Hopefully you're doing all right. I thought I was like pretty certain I had it last week, and then turns out I was just regular, boring, old sick, and definitely did not have COVID. All right, and then I don't know why, but this is like one of my favorite presets in all of Live now. I found it a couple weeks ago, and I've been using it quite a bit. It's the grand piano harp time preset. It's just one of the ones you can find in live, and it just sounds really good. So I've been using this to like generate a bunch of ideas. So that's been kind of my jam recently, and it's really nice because a lot of these macros here actually do quite a bit of work. The music is very quiet. Let me check this. All right, let me turn that up. I think I turned it down during the song feedback streams. Got a little bit less delay in here. So yeah, it's just a really nice preset with a lot of good options in it. I should probably figure this out one part at a time. Hey Ralph, how you doing? I do not have RC20. On the top of my head, I don't know what that is, but it sounds like a sequencer. I was totally wrong. Retro Color 20. Interesting, it's like a retro coloring plugin. It looks cool. Yeah, noise generator, it's got wobble, it's got a saturation, bit crusher, reverb, volume drops. Yeah, that seems pretty nice, but unfortunately I have not tried it. there's one in there that I liked. Might have been this one. No. I like that actually. Oops, sorry, I screwed it up. So yeah, Ralph, unfortunately I will not be able to help you with the download because I haven't tried it out myself. Is it the issue just getting it downloaded and installed? And then afterwards asking, am I able to change return track settings such as pre and post effects? So you do have the pre and post effects controls right here on the master. These are actually really interesting because they work the way you think they would. Unfortunately, the way they work is that they are on a per send basis. So it's going to apply to all of the send controls for that return track simultaneously. So for example, if I take return C and make it, actually this is not pre-effects, it's pre-fader. So you can make it pre and post fader here. Unfortunately, you can't make it pre-effects here. This is just for fader. So for example, if this is on post fader, if I turn this up to the reverb, and then if I turn down the volume here, it's no longer sending to the return track. But if I make it pre-fader, we still get it here, regardless of what this volume is. All right. However, if you want to do effects, like pre or post effects, you could most likely do a number of different ways to do this. I'm pretty sure that will external audio effect work? Let me try this out. Yeah, it only goes directly out. Probably the best way to do that, to make it pre or post effects, is to make a new audio track that's going to receive from whatever track you're going from, and make that pre, post, or whatever. So if I want to make it post effects, make it post effects, set the monitor to in, and then use this as your send knob. So here, if I turn this up here, this is now taking, and I could even mute this. I could turn the volume down here. So now this is going in here. pre-effect, or in this case, post-effects, or I can make it pre-effects. So I believe this is probably the easiest way I can think of off the top of my head to make this work, which would be to have a separate track that is receiving the audio from the track you want to send pre-effects, and then send it out there, and then go out to whatever return track you want. Off the top of my head, that's probably the fastest and easiest way to do it. If you don't care about pre or post effects, you could just, you want to just pre or post mixer, you just do it over here in the master. So everybody's asking, what about if you have a grouped set of tracks? If I have tracks within a group that are sending to return, but I have the low pass filter on the group that's not affecting that makes it return. Yeah, so it all comes down to kind of signal flow and how you want to process things within your group. So if you have like a low pass filter here and you want to be able to have individual levels going here to your return tracks, you would have to either use the group to send the signal with the low pass on it, which means all the tracks are getting the same amount of the return track, or you do it individually on each one of them, but then there's no way to get them to have the filter in there unless you start adding the filter individually onto each track. Which is, I think, the question they're asking. I think that's what's going on. Or what you could do is put the low pass filter on your return track before whatever it is it's going into, and then they're going to all be filtered that way. You could have the same, essentially the same filter here on the return track as you would do on the group itself. That'd be another way to kind of like recreate that kind of situation. There's not going to be like one way to do it necessarily. Thank you, Ringa. I'm just kind of screwing around right now, trying to figure out what I want this song to sound like. I really don't necessarily think this piano sequence is what I want. Yeah, I'm not really feeling that. I think I just gotta do some chords instead. actually kind of like that. That's not the right one. I hate it when I play something and then I don't remember immediately after the thing that I played, and then I have to try to remember it, because none of those sounded like the one I wanted originally. It was... That's the one. That was what I wanted. Yeah, Ring of the Azimuth, I think it's from the Beat Tools kit, which is a fantastic kit. I use that one actually quite a bit. Hey, Jason, how are you doing today? So you're asking, how do I use the compressor on the master channel to bring the volumes closer together? That is a fantastic question. So it depends a lot on what it is you're trying to do and what your goals are. Generally, when you're using a compressor on your master to bring the volumes together, you're doing that in limiting, or not mastering, not limiting. You're doing it in mastering. And there's two ways to approach doing that. There's ways to do that on like a multi-band compression scale, where you're just trying to like kind of squeeze things together. And then there's limiting, which is kind of like the very final stage of the mastering. So it sounds kind of like you're asking a little bit about mastering, and kind of like how to put together a mastering chain a little bit, which I'm not quite ready for on this track, but we can at least talk about kind of the concept. So most of you guys are probably aware that like mixing essentially means that like getting all your volumes of each individual track good together, EQing everything so everything is nice and clear, panning stuff, all that kind of stuff, right? And then once you're done that, the like kind of final stage is going to be mastering. And this is really the only time that I would put a compressor or really anything on the master. And there's lots of ways to approach it. So you could just use the regular compressor. And if your goal is to just kind of like barely squish things together, the way I like to do this is essentially, I like this view or this view the best to like really see what's going on here. We're going to take our threshold and we're going to turn it down till your threshold is just barely being hit. So we can see here in our gain reduction meter, our GR, it actually shows us this little like orange line bouncing up and down when the threshold is being hit. And if you're using an old version of Live, it doesn't tell you the gain reduction, but right here it does. So you can see here, each time that kick drum hits, we're getting about 2 decibels of gain reduction. So if we're doing for some like nice gentle compression on the master, I'd look for like 2 or 3 decibels of gain reduction. And the further you turn this down, the more you're gonna hear it turning things down. So you can hear it's actually much quieter now. And we're getting like 7 to 9 decibels of gain reduction, which is too much for something like this. So I'm gonna try to find the sweet spot where I'm getting about 2, maybe 3 decibels of gain reduction. So right around there. Then once I've done that, I'm gonna go to the output gain right here and then turn it up by about the same amount as being turned down by. It's about 2 to 3 decibels of gain reduction. Or turn up here. So effectively what I've done here is I've taken the loudest parts of the song, which right now is basically just the kick. The kick is way louder than everything else. So the kick is being turned down in volume. Well, technically, everything's being turned down in volume. Or the kick is being turned down a little bit, and then we're turning everything back up using the output gain here. So this would be like a really gentle kind of master kind of compression. So you can do it with this. You can do it with the multi-band dynamics, which is basically the same thing, except for you can have different bands for your lows, mids, and highs. So we can EQ, or we can compress one band separately from the other. So you might want to have a little bit more compression on your low end, in which case this right here is going to be your threshold as you drag it left and right. And then if you want to add more compression to it, you click right here and turn down. We can actually do this. So you can see the yellow is our original volume and the blue is our new volume. If you go up, it actually goes the opposite direction and acts as an expander. So once again here, we'd be looking for just the things that are going to be above that threshold. And then we have an output gain right here that we can use to turn back up. Some people swear by the multiband dynamics. I personally don't love it. I think the interface is a lot more confusing than this is. And it can be really cool, but this would be one of the very few situations where I might consider using the multiband dynamics, is because we have so many frequencies going through this song. It's nice to be able to customize and control the compression on each one of those bands, as opposed to this, which is just one for everything. Yet another way to do this is to use the glue compressor. This is kind of what the glue compressor is designed for. It's designed to glue things together a little bit. As you said, asking a question, bringing the volumes together. So it's going to be the same concept here. We're going to take the threshold, turn it down until we start to see the gain reduction meter bouncing up and down. And then we have an output gain to control to make up for the volume that's being turned down. So here, we have a threshold here. We're going to turn this down until we see the gain reduction meter bounce up and down. So here we can see it bouncing up down a lot, which is way too much. So I'm looking for something maybe around here, where it's mostly in the kind of like 3-ish decibels of gain reduction, and then we turn it back up here. So in this situation, it's going to be pretty subtle, but when this is turned off, the kick is going to be louder than everything else. And when I turn this on, everything else is going to be a little bit louder, and the kick is going to be the same volume, basically. So here it is with no compression. Kick will probably be too loud. And I turn this on. All those background sounds get quite a bit louder. So glue compressor, regular compressor, same kind of concept here. Both work great, whichever one you feel like. Multiband if you want to get a little bit more control, but just be aware that the multiband dynamics takes a little bit more effort to kind of figure out. Another option is just to use the limiter. So this is generally I only really recommend using this when you are in the mastering stage of the workflow and your song is basically done and you're just trying to get that extra little bit of volume. In this situation, it won't so much kind of squeeze them together, like how you're asking, but it will allow you to turn everything up to a specific level. So limiter is basically just a really harsh compressor, and the ceiling here is -0.3 decibels. So if I start to turn this up, as I turn up the volume, the maximum volume that this will let through is -0.3 decibels. And then here we'll see the gain reduction as I start to turn it up. So right now, it's doing nothing. Sounds exactly the same either way. But as I turn this up, everything gets a lot louder, and you can see the gain reduction meter start to bounce up and down, meaning that once it hits that 0.3 decibels or -0.3 decibels of volume, it turns everything down. So those are 4 different methods to toss a compressor on your master and get something out of it. Hopefully that answers your question, Jason. There's a lot you can do with it. It's really kind of up to you. But for the most part, you don't need to do all of them. A lot of times I will do like some multiband, like subtle multiband compression in my mastering chain. And then later on, the last thing I'm going to do is the limiter. Another really cool trick that I've been meaning to make a video about for a long time, but I just have been kind of lazy about, is when you're mastering, instead of using one limiter, try using 2 limiters back to back. So the concept here is that each limiter does less work and you can get something that sounds really good out of it. So if I'm going to turn the volume on the master down, actually I'll just turn it down in OBS so it doesn't get too loud for you guys. So if I try doing this, if I turn this one up a bit, I'm going to try to just get a little bit of gain reduction here, which is going to have to be a lot because there's not much going on in the track yet. Like that. So this one's doing a little bit, and then I chop this one a little bit. So that way, each one's doing a little bit of the work, and this is a great way to get a nice big sounding master without overly squashing it through a compressor, because a lot of people will just crank it on one of them. So instead of cranking on one, each one does a little bit of the work, and it ends up sounding really nice, I think. Yeah, Jason, I'm definitely interested in focusing a bit more on mixing and mastering, both in terms of stuff I'm doing on stream as well as stuff I'm doing for videos and content like that. That's part of the reason I'm doing the 50 song challenge, so I can get more songs into that mixing and mastering phase, so I have more good examples to use from. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a big focus for this year for both what I'm doing personally as well as for the channel. But I appreciate the question, and I definitely think we're going to be focusing a lot more on that kind of stuff. Also, if anybody is just joining us and they have any questions or things that they want to get into or talk about, feel free to toss them in chat. That's what I'm here for. Sabrina is asking, is it possible to have a MIDI controller adjust only one selected highlight VST at a time, and a background piece not to be automating or adjusting until it's selected record? So yeah, so I'm assuming what you're talking about is like recording automation from your MIDI controller, and it's going to multiple channels. So the way this should work is that you should only really be sending MIDI information to whatever track is record enabled. So in this case, I'm not using any third-party plugins. So it's not gonna be quite the same, but same concept here. So if I am on this track right here, it's only sending MIDI to that track, right? And over here, it's only sending MIDI to that track. Same thing is true with automation, right? So if I am, for example, let's do something like this. If I'm on this track and I hit record and I'm playing something and I like change a control here. Let me get into the, can't see the rack because of the light. Any automation that I had in here, why did not record the automation? Why is my record automation not turned on? That's very strange. All right, so it's recording automation here, right? This automation should not record to any other tracks unless you have multiple tracks record enabled. So if I had something like this, and now when I play, it's playing both of these tracks. And if I were, even if I tried recording, if I was sending like just a generic MIDI CC, it would record to both those tracks. So are you in a situation where you want to be able to record MIDI onto multiple tracks like this? So I'm recording this. And in this situation, and you wanted to only send automation to this track, but not to this one. Is that where you're going for? What's up, Tripathi? How you doing? Good to see you too. Okay. Yeah, so I think the easy solution is only record enable one track at a time. Because in this situation, if this track is not record enabled, it should not send any MIDI information to this track. Unless you have them MIDI mapped, maybe? Yeah, absolutely, Tripathi. Just put the question in chat. Yeah, so it should not send any information here. If you MIDI map something, so let's actually try another experiment here. So if I go into user mode and I MIDI map this here to CC172, and then I go over to this track and I map this to, that's the wrong one, CC172. and I record enable here. Okay, so it's recording both here. Regardless of whether it's recording enabled. Okay, so this is the situation you're in, or it's recording on both of them. You don't want to record on both. I mean, I think the easy way would just have them map to different MIDI messages. Like have, you know, this one mapped to CC71 and then the other one mapped to CC72. If that's not an option, yeah, this should only be happening if they are both MIDI mapped to the same MIDI message. So when you go in here, you can see this is channel 1, CC72. This is channel 1, CC72. If one of them is on CC71 instead, so now they're different MIDI messages. When I record enable here, oops, I do this. This one allows me to record that one here, and this one allows me to record this one here, and I can do both at the same time if I want to, but if I only want to do one, I just do one. That I think is going to be your best solution, is just either record them one at a time and just MIDI map them separately. That way it's not trying to record them. Yeah, that's one of the best things about MIDIs. You have a million different CCs that you can use to record different kinds of automation. So yeah, Ringo, try that out and let me know how it goes. Yeah, let's go over here and just delete all this automation. One of my favorite key commands, if you guys aren't aware of this, if you have some automation you want to delete, you know, like when you get the pink dot here, if you're like, you know what, I don't actually want that, just click on it, Command delete, we'll just delete the automation, which is really handy. All right, so Tripathi is asking, what's the best way to get a sense of distance for sound? So we want strings to be present, but apparently coming from somewhere far off. How to do it and keep it balanced in the mix? I think there's a number of different ways to do that. Probably my favorite way is, or a combination of reverb, panning, and layering. Those I think are going to be your 3 best bets. So for example, let's try it with these piano chords. So first off, I already kind of did it earlier, but I just did these piano chords. Right now they sound very dry and very present in the mix, right? So one of the ways to kind of thicken them up and make them seem a little farther away is to just put a bunch of reverb on it. And you can either do this as an insert effect or as a return track. So I was doing it on a return track over here to my first return track. So just by doing this, it gives them this very lingering atmospheric feel to it, which I think is really nice. Oh, I turned it down when I was talking about mastering. That should be better. So you can use whatever reverb you want. So that's a great way to kind of like give it a little bit of like space and distance, but also still have it be present in the mix, right? Another way to do this same kind of concept, except for you want to do it actually on the track itself. This is more if you want it to sound farther away. If you want it to sound kind of distant and you're not so concerned about it being right up front in the mix, just use a reverb with a decent amount of dry wet. If I just turn this all the way, it just sounds really far away now, right? And the larger decay time I have, larger size that I have, you can make it sound really far away, and you can use whatever kind of reverb you want for this. But it does, you know, go off into the distance. So that's another option. So those kind of things, either reverbs, kind of to move it around spatially, can be really fantastic. And then using panning to your advantage can also be really fantastic. And this kind of ties into the other thing, which is layering, right? So say I have this layer right here, pretty dry, pretty basic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that entire track and have another version over here. This version I might make some major changes to, or I might make some minor changes to. It's kind of up to me. So for example, I might like grab the MIDI effect for pitch and have it pitch up an octave. Same thing, but just octave higher. And then maybe I'll also add some delay to it. Delay is also a great way to add kind of space and movement to something. And maybe this is the one I'll add some reverb to. So again, now it sounds kind of far away, and I can layer it with the original. So this one's going to be my more upfront, more present layer, right? So like I said, like you still want it to be heard, you still want it to be part of the mix. So we're going to have one layer that's going to be fairly dry. And then we have another layer that's going to be much wetter in terms of effects, using more reverb, using more delays, whatever thing you want to make it kind of fit in and layer with it, but also fill in space in the background. And then maybe what I'll do again is I'll duplicate it again. And on this one, maybe I will play with the notes a little bit. So use things like inversions or like pitching things up or pitching things down. So maybe this one will go up and up. You know, that one note will go up an octave. So it's the same chord, but it's just spread out more. And maybe on this one, instead of having delay, I'll just have lots of reverb. And we'll pick out like a bigger space. Like that. So we have main layer, mostly dry. Layer number 2, pitched up with delay and a bit of reverb. And layer 3, maybe we'll have reverb, 2 different reverbs on it. And then all 3 of them together, with these ones being a bit quieter than the original. And they all kind of come together to all kind of create like the sense of like one sound that sounds really kind of big and spacious and kind of far away, but also can still be heard. And then the other tip I had for this was to pan things separately, right? So our main layer is going to stay maybe not exactly in the middle, but mostly towards the middle. Whereas layer number 2 over here, maybe we'll pan off pretty hard to one side. Even though it has the ping pong delay, it'll still bounce back and forth a little bit, but that's totally fine. And then the other one will go to the other side. So this is also just spatially helping us spread things out, where we have main idea, we might pan out a little bit to one side or another, depending on how our mix is going, but these bring really far off each other. Like that. So I do this a lot for things that I want to sound really atmospheric, things that I want to kind of like fill in space in the background. But since you mentioned specifically, did you say mention strings, or am I just making that up? Yeah, strings. I use this a lot, especially for strings, because strings are really tricky to make them sound really good. So this is a great technique, because I'll have 3 different layers of strings, one main one, and then 2 kind of off to the side that are similar, but not exactly the same. I'll probably do this a lot to vocals as well. I'll have like a main vocal layer coming down the middle. It's gonna be nice and clear, sticks through the mix. And then I'll have other vocal layers kind of surrounding it that are meant to be more atmospheric and kind of get kind of lost in the mix a little bit to help kind of support the main layer. And then of course we can grab all these guys toss them in a group together, and then we can start processing them as a group in case we want to compress them together, in case we want to like tweak them a little bit. If you want to make it sound even more atmospheric, put another set of delays and reverbs on there, although I'm feeling pretty good about it so far. And then lastly, you cue them a little bit separately too, so they're not fighting with each other as much. So for example, this guy here lives in like a pretty specific area already. And then this one, I might emphasize that part a little bit. This is more important once you get to mixing, but I'm actually not opposed to that. I think that actually sounds pretty good. Yeah, Ringa, I would try some of these methods here that I'm trying, where you start with one idea and then you duplicate it, make it a little variation, and then you duplicate it again and make it a little variation. So instead of having 3 separate sounds that you're trying to make it sound like one sound, you have one core starting point that you start from, and then the additional layers originate from that original layer, if that makes sense. And then you tweak each layer. Like I said, you tweak the MIDI notes a little bit. Sometimes I'll play with rhythm. Sometimes I'll play with timing. I'll play with effects quite a bit, so that they're all connected together. They all have like a sonic core to them that's all kind of similar. Sometimes I'll switch out the instrument or something like that, and then tweak it from there. But it's kind of up to you. And then if you need to, then you can run it through the group and then process them all as a group. So I think that works. It's a really easy technique, and it's a great way to just take something that like sounds okay, like these piano chords, and turn it into something like, all right, now all of a sudden it's like a rich, more kind of fuller sound. And oftentimes what I'll do is like, maybe I will swap out, right now I'm using the generic live grand piano. Maybe I'll swap in a contact piano that like has like a different tonal quality to it. Or maybe one piano will be like more of like a lo-fi kind of gritty piano. The other two are normal. There's lots of like subtle ways to mix and match ideas here to create kind of one sound together. And like, don't be afraid to use your return tracks and panning. Like these are all little tiny techniques that can make a big difference in the long run, I think. But yeah, that's a really good question. Hopefully that answers that question. Hopefully you're feeling pretty good about it. Let me jump back to my drums here. We're gonna make some sad house music, I guess. This is what this means. This is actually just the drum synth. Just this guy, this is Max for Live device. I've talked about it before a little bit, but all I did was, I think, just starting from the default patch, I turned the decay down a tiny bit, the envelope down a tiny bit, and the overdrive up a little bit. I think that's it. Straightforward. I didn't even saturate or anything yet. I did want to sidechain the chords though. I don't know if these really need the sidechain. All right, here's another really fun trick that I think actually works really well. So right now we're sidechaining the group of these chords that I just made. However, it's not really working for me. And just like, this is just like, they don't really need it. However, I do think the return tracks here, the two reverbs I'm using, could sound really good with that. So that way you get the chords that just don't have the sidechain and just kind of play normally, but then the atmospheric sound around it will have it. So this is going to be, I do this actually fairly regularly, but we'll try this out and see if this works any better. Here it gives that kind of pulsing here. I like that click though. There we go, it's a little better. No more clicking in there. And we'll do the same thing for the other one. So that way these guys still get the pulsing. Without the chords getting it. Not sure about this guy yet. I am going to compress the group a little bit though. What's up, Kevin? Long time no see. How you been? There's not an auto pan, but I'm using the delay with the ping pong setting turned on. There used to be an audio effect just called ping pong delay, and then they deleted it and just put it inside the regular delay. But there's something about ping pong delay that will always make it one of my favorite sounds. It just like makes everything sound really cool. It just bounces back and forth as opposed to this is such a good preset. All right, we're gonna need a clap in here, I think. We're gonna need a nice sounding clap. These are all terrible. That's close. So hard to find a good class. That actually might. There we go. I think that's what I want. More or less. So Afterfire is asking, is there a way to expand more than one track vertically at a time? I'm assuming you're talking about like in the arrangement view, if you want to like change the height of multiple tracks simultaneously. The way that I normally do it is just hit Command A to select all, and then if you change one of them, it changes all of them. You can also, without hitting Command A, let's see if I remember the key command. Just holding down Option and then dragging them will change them all at the same time. Yeah, Option on any one of them. If you click right here, we'll change all of them together. That's just the fastest way. I'm just so used to doing Command A and then just doing this. Command A is nice because you can do it like if you click something in a group and hit Command A, it only does it to the ones in the group, which is pretty handy. Whereas if you Option and then click and drag, it does it to everything simultaneously. But yeah, that's how you do that. What if we put that one in there if that's too much? Not sure I'm in love with that clap, but what's up, Gauntlet? How you doing today? I think I'm just needing more atmosphere here. So what we're going to do is we're going to steal this chord progression and we're going to put it on a pad sound. And we'll try to make some nice kind of atmospheric kind of thing. This is going to be really harsh. Let me turn this down. Actually, kind of like that. That's just like a lo-fi kind of thing. I think square waves are better than saw waves, and I challenge anybody to prove me wrong. Put a little bit of LFO on the filter frequency here and make it really slow and really subtle. Also, if anybody is just joining us right now, I'm just kind of screwing around working on this track. But if you have questions about anything related to music production, you are more than welcome to toss those questions in the chat, whether they are relative to what I'm doing right now or not. All right, this clap is really not doing it for me. That one's kind of close. We could try tossing that on here too. A little bit better. What's up, DG? How are you doing? So can an operator emulate something like an OBX for an 80s style lead synth? The OBX is not ringing any bells off the top of my head. Let me look up. Oh, the Abraham. I have personally never used the OBX, unfortunately. However, I do know for a fact that operator 100% can emulate any kind of FM synthesis. Like anything you want to do with FM, you can 100% do with operator if you know the. I'm assuming you know what the basics of FM synthesis are and how they kind of work. But operator is pretty straightforward in terms of like creating that kind of like FM kind of sound. So yeah, so if you haven't played around with it before, essentially you have your 4 operators here, just like you would in any other kind of FM synthesizer. You are limited to 4, which is kind of a bummer. Especially more modern FM synthesizers can do a lot more than that, but 4 is usually plenty in my opinion. And they all have your different waveform types here. So your saw, square, sine wave, plus a bunch of other ones. So if you wanted to do a real kind of just like a saw wave kind of thing, and then essentially the routing in operator goes from top to bottom. So B is going to multiply A. I forget which one's the carry and modulator in this situation. So as I turn this up, you can start getting in your little FM here. And then you can pitch them here using the coarse frequency, which changes the harmonic that is set. So it gets really high frequency really fast. But yeah, so you can use those elements to create all the kind of like classic 80s FM style synthesis. So for example, if you wanted to like just take 2 sine waves. In this case, 4 sine waves. I like to turn the spread up a bit. The spread's going to act not quite like a chorus, but it's going to widen it a bit. Or we can get in here and just like do a bunch of saw waves together. Still a sine wave. Mine's a monophonic. Let me make that not monophonic. You get these big sounding 80s chords, and then you can like toss some chorus on here. I don't know, when I think 80s FM, I think more Blade Runner than I do Van Halen, but it's going to be kind of a similar process either way. And the other nice thing here is if you want to do more kind of like shifting and changing with your waveforms, each one of your operators has its own volume envelope. So if I give this a bunch of attack as I play the chord, it's going to change over time. And then because it goes top to bottom, D is multiplying C, which is multiplying B, which is multiplying A. So if you give B a fade in, you're not hearing anything from these two until this one turns up. Same thing if you were to turn off B, it's just going to be A. If you turn off A, you don't get anything because it all has to go through A. And then from here, if you do want to change the routing in operator, you can go right here and you can see there's this little diagram. These colors correspond to your operators. So as I mentioned, D multiplies C, which multiplies B, which multiplies A, and then goes out. But if you switch it to something like this, C is multiplying B, and then the result of that is multiplying A at the same time as D. So there's different routings depending on how you want to put this together. And if you go all the way over here, they are now all parallel. And you're just dealing with a 4 oscillator subtractive synthesizer. So yeah, so sorry I don't have any specific info about how to get necessarily the Van Halen sound. I've never tried to recreate that or anything specific to the OBX. But in terms of like its FM capabilities and can you create 80 style leads or 80 style pads, 100% can do all that stuff. It's actually, I think, quite good at it. Operator is probably one of my favorite synths of all time. Let me know if you have questions about anything more specific, and I will try to answer them. All right, so Ring is asking a question about sometimes when I'm playing a VST in real time or MIDI clip and I stop playing, the sound keeps playing endlessly and I have to close live or delete the channel to stop it. Is there a fix? So yeah, you're talking about like a ghost MIDI note or something getting stuck in there. There's a number of different things that can cause that. Usually it's a bug. So the first thing I would recommend is do some testing and see if it's one specific plugin that's doing it, or are there multiple plugins that happen at different times? Because if it's one plugin that does that kind of thing, it's most likely a buggy plugin, in which case I would say delete it and reinstall it. If it's happening on multiple tracks across multiple VSTs and things like that, then it might be something in live, in which case I would probably uninstall live and reinstall it. Other than that, I would also check your MIDI controller. Yeah, I would try, and if it's just specific plugins, try those. Sometimes if a note on like the push or something like that gets stuck, it'll just stay playing that note and you have to like wiggle the key a little bit, and that will stop it from sending that MIDI message. So if it's still happening after you have like stopped everything and like turned all recordingable off on everything, it's probably not your MIDI controller. But sometimes MIDI controllers can cause that by sending extra MIDI notes that they're not supposed to because of some hardware failure. But most likely it's a software issue. Most likely it's, plugin needs to be updated or it's just freaking out and that's what it's doing. Yeah. I'll try to see if I can think of anything else that causes that, but usually it's faulty software that's just picking up on MIDI messages that shouldn't be there. That's the most common place I see that. Occasionally you can get like weird MIDI notes that get like stuck inside a live, but it doesn't happen really very often. Sweet. Anybody else got any questions, topics, things that they want to get into? Sweet. So yeah, I'm gonna keep on messing around with this song, but I'm here for you guys if you have specific things you want to get into. I got mixed feelings about this synth. I like what's going on here. I'm not sure if the synth and the piano play nicely, and I think I might want to go for a more minimalistic style on this thing, and that way, and like not go super synth heavy on this track. But let me know in the chat if you have opinions about it. So I think by itself it sounds cool. I feel like I need some like somebody jamming out on a guitar on this track. That might be the next thing. Actually, I know what the next thing is. I need some glitchy IDM percussion. See if this works. No, those are not the right sounds, I don't think. Good, right concept, not the right execution. So we're gonna get rid of these guys. And let's go to our drum sounds. Those are too much. All right. I want like little glitchy sounds, but I want them to be like really subtle. These are all. Those two could work, maybe. Try those two. So I'm looking for really quick sounds that don't have a lot of harmonics to them. Like that'd be better if it was shorter. These are not what I want. There you go, clicks. Perfect, that's what I want. I'll grab a couple more. try these guys. Much closer to what I want. There's one sound I don't like in here. I think it's that one. There's one more, I think. It's that one. I don't know if I'm feeling that sound. We should switch gears a little bit, move over to like bass or something like that. All right, let's make my life easy. a nice kind of like plucky sound. Get a little saturator in here. And my timing was terrible. So if anybody's wondering why FM synthesis is the best kind of synthesis, it's because you can basically just tweak these two knobs essentially, and if you want the other ones, but basically just these two, and just get infinite different combinations of sounds here. Still sound a little weird to me. What am I missing? So right now I'm just kind of messing around with this baseline, trying to make it work. But if you guys have any questions or things that you guys want to talk about or get into, feel free to let me know in the chat. Still way too high. That's a little better, I think. I don't think this baseline needs to be like super huge and over the top. I think it just needs to kind of like fit in and nicely add a little bit of groove to it. I think that could work. It's basically just a off-time hi-hat with 2 shakers in between, and then a bunch of random percussion with some delay on it. I'm feeling like the baseline needs a lot of love, but the concept is there. I'm liking the chord progression a lot. I'm liking the effects on the chord progression. I'm definitely going to expand upon that quite a bit. And then the big mystery thing here is the melody. I'd like to make something really kind of pretty and sad, but also kind of dancey at the same time. Sad dance music is really what I want in my life. And I feel like this is definitely going in that direction. So I'm gonna probably spend a little time working on the melody in a little bit, but I'm also realizing that we are running a little low on time for the stream. So if you guys have any other questions or things you want to get into, now would be a good time to ask those in the chat. On top of that, I will be back tomorrow for the Patreon stream. So if you guys are Patreon members, you know where to find that. If you're not a Patreon member, I would highly recommend it because you get a whole extra stream of me doing stuff and cool things that happen over there. If not, I will be back on Wednesday for a song feedback stream. So I'm super stoked to hear the tracks you guys have been working on. But yeah, I'm gonna screw around for a little bit more, kind of see where it takes me. But we're gonna be wrapping up in just a bit. Now I don't like this at all. I'll do something like that. Can I go any lower than this? I don't think I can. Better here. CPU overloads. I'm getting so close to getting the melody I want. So for those of you guys who are not aware, this is how I oftentimes write my melodies. Is I'll come up with a general theme that I like, a couple like notes that I think fit together, which for me is and then I'll just keep jamming out and playing different combinations of those notes first and then play a bunch of different notes to see if I can come up with the thing that I like. I haven't found out the second half of that I like yet, but it's going to definitely start off with me going, and then probably down to here, something kind of like that. That's really close. That could work, eh? Usually I'll just hit capture, because usually I'll get it once and then I'll hit the capture button right away. Sometimes if I get it and then I still want to play around with it, I'll hit record and I'll record a couple variations if I haven't quite dialed it in yet. But mostly I'll just use capture. In this case, I won't use capture because I'm not playing to the beat, and so I will have to hit, I won't have to, but I usually will have to hit record afterwards. What is the last note here? That could work. Actually, I don't mind that one. Let's try that. Not convinced about these last two notes, but everything else up until then is good. So because I am kind of going to go take a break and eat some dinner and do other things for a bit, here's another little technique that I use quite a bit. If I'm like, haven't fully figured something out, if I'm still fleshing it out, I use the color red for that. So that way, like you'll notice nowhere else in my template am I using the color red. That way, when I come back and I open this project, probably either later tonight or tomorrow or whenever I get around to come back to it, I can see, oh, this red thing is the thing that it's not done yet. It's like, it's getting close. I got ideas here. Now I actually have it recorded so I can take a look at it later on. But I use red for that. You can use whatever color you want, but it's good to have a color that's like a notice me color that you can just pop in there and be like, okay, this is a thing that needs some love, it needs some work. And that way I know just when I come back and open the project, there it is. So yeah, that's what we did today. I appreciate everybody for coming by and asking questions or just hanging out and watching if that's more your thing. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow for the Patreon stream or Wednesday for the song feedback stream. But yeah, that's gonna be it for tonight. I will see you guys later.